This week, I'm bringing you along as I prepare a week of cozy, fall-inspired, nourishing dinners for my family of 7. I'll also share something I've been loving lately, bake up my favorite dinner rolls for our church small group, and open up about the heartbreaking tragedy our nation has faced in recent weeks. Let's get started.
Oh. I love your hair. That's so handsome.
Hello, welcome to another video. If you're new here, my name is Priscilla. I am a homemaking, homeschooling mom of 5, and I love sharing about what we eat in a week, how we homeschool, all that stuff. So if you're interested in that type of thing, you should go ahead and subscribe to my channel so you can follow along. Lately, where I live in North Carolina, the air has just felt more crisp. It's honestly my favorite time of year. And because of that, I have been more in the mood for all of the fall things. We've been having lots of chai tea, pumpkin flavored everything. And this week I was in the mood for some fall inspired cozy dinners. So to get started, the first dinner we're having is a roast chicken with potatoes and carrots. This probably doesn't scream the most cozy fall meal, but I mainly did this because I wanted the bones from the chicken for bone broth for my other cozy fall meals. Also, it's a Monday, and on a Monday I want a very simple meal, and this is about as simple as you can get. I've shared this recently in another video, and I'll link the recipe below. But so far all I have done is truss the chicken. I stuffed a couple tablespoons of butter under the skin to help it get more tender. And then I chopped up the potatoes and carrots, put them in a baking dish with some olive oil, salt, pepper, garlic powder, and then I seasoned the chicken with the same stuff, just olive oil, salt, pepper, garlic powder, and then put that on top of the vegetables in the casserole dish. Then I just put it in a preheated oven at 425 for about an hour. Then I cover it with foil to make sure it doesn't get too dark, and then cook another 30 minutes.
Okay, while the chicken is in the oven, I have to show you this jewelry that I got that I have been loving. They're from Ana Luisa, and they have quickly become my new everyday staples. I got this heart puffed necklace and this letter J gold bracelet. I got the J for my husband's name because I love my husband. I've had a couple people ask me about them already, and I keep catching myself already looking at their website for new pieces to add to my collection. If you know me, I love dainty gold jewelry, and Ana Luisa has just that and other options. It's jewelry that you can wear around the house or on play dates or going to the gym, and you don't feel too overdressed, but you still look elevated. They are also simple to stack with other Ana Luisa jewelry. Their pieces are designed so you can stack them or wear them by themselves and look polished without trying too hard. And here's the thing. Ana Luisa is extremely high quality and so affordable. With pieces starting at only $39, you would be surprised how high quality this feels. Like, I was impressed when I first received it to feel that it felt so strong for looking so dainty. They even back everything with a 2-year warranty, which shows how much they must trust their products. And that makes them such a good gifting option for someone you love, or I even thought about getting the same necklace for my daughter so we could match. Another thing is I recently got my daughter's ears pierced, and they stressed how you need to wear hypoallergenic earrings, and I bought some earrings for her that were not hypoallergenic, and her ears reacted poorly. So it makes me feel good that I can trust that Ana Luisa's jewelry will be safe for her ears. So if you've been eyeing some new jewelry, definitely check them out. You can use my personalized link down in the description box below to shop and see all of their new pieces. Now let's go and check on the chicken.
While the chicken is still baking, I wanted to make some biscuits to go with it. This recipe is from the blog Grains and Grit. She has a lot of my go-to recipes for fresh milled grains, so you should definitely check out her blog. This recipe called you to sift the flour, which I did not do, and I actually saw it after I already measured out all the flour, and I thought I'd just go with it. Mine were definitely not fluffy. They were still great, but I wouldn't describe them as fluffy, so maybe that's because I didn't sift them. But I also just don't want to sift fresh milled flour. I'm just stubborn in that way. I don't want to do it. But that's up to you. So if you want to try this recipe, she recommends sifting, and I assumed that would make them more fluffy. So I added the 8 cups of freshly milled soft white wheat flour, the baking powder, and the salt and sugar. Now I am cutting up the butter and throwing it into the bowl in the mixer cold, and then slowly adding milk. I didn't have buttermilk. I know there's ways to kind of make buttermilk, but I didn't feel like it. I just added milk. This recipe makes a ton of biscuits, so it was actually nice because we had the rest of them the following morning with some eggs for breakfast. And if I don't have any type of bread prepared, I find that biscuits are so quick to throw together, and they're so delicious. It is funny to think about how I love to make everything from scratch, but then there's certain things that I'm like, nah, not worth it, like buttermilk. I mean, it's so easy, but just the extra couple steps, I'm like, not worth it. Meanwhile, I'll like make the biscuits from scratch, the noodles from scratch, the bone broth from scratch, but that one extra step, I'm like, nah, calling it there. Another thing you'll probably notice is I think all of our dinners this week we had at the counter of our kitchen. We do have a dining room table. It's kind of our homeschool room, but most nights we do have dinner with the kids sitting at the counter and me and my husband sitting at the table, and then our baby in his high chair. I would love to start having dinner around the dining room table, but we're just in a season where we're so busy that the extra cleanup of having to clean up the kitchen and the dining room has just been a little too much for us. But I do think we should start to prioritize it because I feel like it just adds to the family culture and creates better opportunity for conversation with the children. But for right now, in this busy season, this is just the easiest way to do dinner. But even though we're all not sitting around the same table together, we're still in the same room, we're still conversing, we're still having our family devotions together, and I feel like that's the most important part.
Mama, can I make a robot here?
A robot?
Yeah, a robot. Yeah. Okay. This.
That's how you do it. Isn't that cool?
Today is Tuesday, and I'm getting started on our next dinner. This is probably the most fall-like dinner I make this week. It is homemade pasta with a butternut squash sauce. And because there's not much protein in that, I'm also making some ground turkey to go with it. I wanted initially to do like grilled chicken, but I didn't have any chicken thawed out, so I went with ground turkey, and it honestly tasted really good. First, I just made some fresh pasta. I have a recipe on this that I will link below. It's just your basic pasta recipe. So I mixed that together, put it into a bowl, and then just put it in a plastic bag to rest. And then I got a pack of bacon and laid it out on some parchment paper on a sheet pan and put it in the oven. I prefer to make bacon in the oven because it's a lot easier, much less of a mess, and it always comes out perfect and crispy. I just put it in the oven at 400 for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then I'll get started on the sauce. The sauce is really simple and easy. It's just onion, garlic, sage, some chicken broth, butternut squash, milk, and then salt and pepper. My son Draper is the biggest daddy's boy you'll ever see. He used to be a mama's boy, and then once I weaned him, he just switched overnight to being a daddy's boy, and he's never looked back. You okay, Draper? Draper, do you want me to get you chocolate? Okay, I'll get you some. My husband offered to get him chocolate, and I quickly was like, oh, I'll get it for you, because I'm trying to win him back to my side. But truth be told, I'm extremely thankful that my husband is so hands-on and that my kids love their daddy. Whenever I'm out with all the kids by myself, I get stopped by so many people that are like, how do you do it? And sometimes they'll ask, like, does your husband help? And I'm like, oh, yes, he does. He's so amazing at including the kids in everything. Even if he comes home and he's working, he'll usually have one or two of them working with him. And it's just very sweet to see, and I'm just so thankful for it. I added the onion to the pot, and then it started sweating, so I added the butternut squash. This is where I went a little off, which it's not a huge deal, but I didn't have any fresh sage, so I just used dried powdered sage, and it's totally fine, but it did change the color a little bit, and it didn't look as, like orange and pretty. It looked a little like greenish. But it still tasted delicious, and that is what matters most. And I'm also getting started on cooking some turkey. I just added salt and pepper to it. I didn't want any flavors from the turkey to clash with the sauce, so I just kept it simple there. The sauce is simmering, the turkey is cooking. Now I'm going to start rolling out the pasta and cutting it. I love this attachment that I have for my KitchenAid mixer. I may have said before that it was a KitchenAid attachment. It turns out it's not. It's not KitchenAid brand, but I love it because it's the roller and the cutter all in one. It's not different pieces, and I've never had any issues with it, so I'm really happy with it. I think mine is backwards from the KitchenAid attachment, but I started at the highest number and then went all the way down to 1, and then I cut it into the wider noodles. I made sure to add flour so they didn't stick, and then I just laid them into little nests. While I'm waiting for the pasta water to get to a boil, I went ahead and blended the sauce. So I just took my immersion blender and blended it up. Then I added the cup of milk and blended that in and adjusted the seasonings with salt and pepper. And it was delicious, despite it looking kind of greenish and brownish. It was really good. Once the water was ready, I added the fresh pasta to it. Fresh pasta only has to boil for like a minute, so it was very quick. Then I added some of the sauce to the turkey meat. I strained the pasta in the sink, and it was time to assemble. First, I'm adding some pasta to every bowl. Then I'm topping it with the butternut squash sauce and some ground turkey. Some of the bacon has been stolen, but I am crumbling the rest of that on top of the bowls. These bowls are for my 4 oldest children and me, and then you'll see me come out with my husband's bowl. Whenever I'm serving up food, it always reminds me of Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, with my children's bowls and then my bowl, and then my husband's bowl is always huge. Let me know if you guys want more of the sauce or anything.
I only want more bacon. Yummy, yummy.
Now it's the next day. Today is Wednesday, and it is the busiest day of our week. We usually have a play date in the morning, and because of that, we try to do homeschool in the afternoon, and then we have our church's small group that night. So it can be a packed day. I'm also on the rotation to bring some type of bread to small group tonight, so I'll be making dinner rolls for that. I'll be sharing my favorite recipe. This is a recipe that people go on and on about, so I'm excited to share it with you. For dinner, I'm making chicken and gnocchi, which is one of my favorite comfort meals. So the first thing I did was put the potatoes in the oven to bake, and then I'll get started on the dinner rolls. I'll link this recipe down below. I've never had it go bad on me. First thing I do is add the water and active yeast in a bowl and just let that sit. I've also used it with instant yeast, totally fine. Then I combine the milk and butter. I do this in a saucepan because if you melt the butter and then add cold milk, then it will just reharden the butter. So I just try to warm up the milk at the same time. Then instead of sugar, I add maple syrup, so I just add that straight to the milk butter mixture. Then I combine that with the yeast and water, and in my mixer, I add the dry ingredients. So I just add the flour and salt. Then I add all of the wet ingredients into the mixer and just let it run until it's not super sticky anymore and pulling away from the sides of the bowls. It'll still be sticking to the bowl, but it just won't be like so sticky. You know what I mean? Anyways, then I'll let that sit for about 30 minutes until it's like exploding out of the bowl. And now I'm going to get the chicken ready for the chicken and gnocchi. I'm just using chicken thighs and baking them. Since it's just going in a soup, I'm not being super particular about how they're cooked. I'm just seasoning them with salt, pepper, and garlic powder. So I usually bake chicken thighs in the oven at about 420 for about 25 minutes. And then I'm going to get started on the rest of the recipe. Since I like to make bone broth, I try to save all of my veggie scraps in the freezer. I ran out of the large freezer bag, so I'm using a smaller one, but I'm just taking all of the leftover scraps and putting them in that and then putting it in the freezer so I have scraps ready to go. Then I'm chopping the celery, the carrots, and the onion, and I'll throw that into the pot. This is one thing I learned in culinary school as well. This is called your mirepoix, and it's typically 50% onion, 25% celery, and 25% carrots. So if you're ever trying to make a pureed soup without any type of recipe, that's usually a good place to start, is just start off with a mirepoix and then get creative.
Is there anything that I can help with?
Do you want to try a new thing?
What?
Do you want to try grating the Parmesan?
What's that?
So that one you have to be very careful with, but it's when you use this. Do you think you can do it?
Yes.
I remember in school, one of our tests was we had to make a pureed soup just with whatever we had, and we walked in and there was a shelf of vegetables and you just had to come up with something. And I ended up doing a butternut squash soup with acorn squash as well. And I added some like nutmeg and I forget what else. It was so long ago, but I remember my instructor was like, wow, this is amazing. And that was really fun. So now I'm working on the gnocchi. I've heard it's pronounced like gnocchi. I don't know. Gnocchi. I've already baked the potatoes. I peeled the skin off and then I mashed them into the bowl. Now I am adding the ricotta cheese, the grated Parmesan that my daughter grated, an egg, flour, salt, and some fresh ground pepper. Then I just mix this in the bowl until it comes together. I'm careful not to over mix it or add too much flour, so it's kind of sticky right now. The gnocchi is ready to go, so now I'm starting on the soup. I'm adding the onions and celery and carrots that I already got ready, and then I'm adding some minced garlic. I shared that today was Wednesday, and This was actually the exact moment that I learned that Charlie Kirk was shot. At this point, it was right when it happened, and I hadn't seen the footage or anything, and I was just praying that it was a graze to the ear like it was with Trump. And I was just visibly upset the rest of the day. You'll see that I make a lot of mistakes in this video. Like, I totally forget about the gnocchi. It turns to mush because it was just all-consuming at that point, especially just not knowing what state he was in. Honestly, it's only a week later and it still feels all-consuming. When I've shared before that me and my husband like to watch the news for our dates, what I really meant was that we watched Charlie Kirk together. We had Charlie Kirk on almost every day in our house, like winding down for bed, watching his new videos, watching his podcast. And I feel like people understand this, so I feel like I don't totally need to explain it. But even though we don't know him personally, it still felt like he was in our home every day. And he was just such a champion for the gospel, such a kind debater. It was just heartbreaking, and it feels like a major moment in history. So on this day, you'll see me constantly checking my phone, watching the news. The gnocchi overboils, it turns to mush. One thing me and my husband keep talking about is with most political figures, even if they claim to be Christians, you're still just not totally sure about where they're at spiritually. But thankfully, with Charlie Kirk, he is someone that we can be very sure about his salvation, and that brings me a lot of comfort. We have been praying for our nation, and we have especially been praying for Erica and his family. I just can't imagine what they are going through. Back to the recipe, I added some flour to the mirepoix in the pan, and then once that browned a little bit, I added some of my homemade bone broth and some dried thyme. While that is cooking, I boiled a pot of water for the gnocchi, and then I started rolling the gnocchi out. I divide it into 4 little balls and then roll them into logs that are about an inch thick, and then cut them into little chunks. I don't do anything to make them look pretty or anything. I just make gnocchi. Then I add the gnocchi to the boiling water and cook it for about 3 to 5 minutes. I wait until it floats to the top, and then I let it go a little bit longer than that.
Lord, please, I try really hard. Please, Lord, please, Lord, please, Lord.
I'm sorry I'm going back and forth between Charlie Kirk being assassinated and making gnocchi. Feels a little weird. But another thing is, this is also a great opportunity to have conversations with your kids about the gospel and what happens when you die, and why when Charlie dies, we're comforted compared to when other people die, we're heartbroken. Because we know that when a believer dies, they're with the Lord, and that changes everything. The gospel is really simple. All of us are sinners, and because of that, we deserve death. But God sent his son, Jesus, who lived a perfect life and died on the cross in our place, and then he rose again, defeating sin and death. When we turn from our sin and trust in him, we have eternal life. So even in these hard moments, we can remind our kids that death isn't the end for those who are in Christ, and we can be sad because we miss them, but we can also be comforted because we know they're with the Lord. Now I've pulled the chicken thighs out of the oven. I chopped them up on my cutting board and added them to the soup along with the gnocchi. Not all of it was totally mush, but maybe a third of it was mush. Then I added about a cup of cream because that's what I had, and I didn't have any spinach, so I didn't add that. I tasted it one last time, adjusted the seasonings, and now I'm serving it up for my kids. It's only about 4 o'clock at this point, and we have our small group tonight, but they're usually hungry after quiet time, so I just went ahead and served them some. And then I ate the leftovers for about a week after this, and this is one of my favorite meals, so I was very happy about that. Now I'm going to get back to the rolls. So I poured the dough out onto the counter. I forgot to share that I was doubling this recipe since I'm feeding a crowd of people. So I'm making 24 rolls. So I got 2 pans out, and each pan should have 12 rolls. So what I do is I kind of take one little ball and flatten it out. Then I grab all the sides and pull them towards the center, and then flip it over and kind of roll it on the counter to roll it into a bowl. Kind of like how you would pull the dough against the counter to make sourdough. And just do that until it's like a cute little ball, and then put it in the greased pan. After I'm finished rolling all of those, I set them on the counter to rise for about another 30 minutes. And then after that, I make an egg wash, and I put the egg wash over all of the rolls and bake them in the oven. They bake for about 25 minutes, and then I pull them out, and I actually just take a stick of butter and just rub it over them while they're warm to butter them. And then they're ready to go, and we're walking out the door in like 5 minutes. Between me and the sun, it's all said and done. It's a new day, the sun is shining, the tank is clean. If you know the reference, comment below. Anyways, the recipe I'm making today, I have made 3 or 4 times since then because it is so simple and my family eats it up. I shared a picture of the recipe on Instagram, but it's very simple. You just start off with a little bit of oil in a skillet, add 1 diced onion, 1 diced pepper, and then some minced garlic. Add ground beef. I added 2 pounds. The recipe calls for 1, but 2 tasted totally great, and 1 is just not enough for my family. Honestly, I probably should have doubled the whole recipe because my family ate all of it. It was one of those nights where me and my husband were kind of hoping that the kids had leftovers so we could eat them, but they did not. Everyone, unfortunately, ate all of their food. Then you also add a cup of tomato sauce. You add some seasonings like basil, oregano, salt, pepper, garlic powder, and then just let that cook on the stove. While that is cooking, you're going to start some biscuits. So you add flour, baking powder, salt, a little bit of sugar, butter, and milk to the food processor. I don't know if I'll be able to find the whole recipe online, but if you're interested, message me on Instagram and I'll send it to you. Then you roll out the biscuits, cut them out, and first you cover the skillet with cheese, but I made the mistake of forgetting that part. So I put the biscuits on, then I remembered, so then I took all the biscuits off, quickly put cheese on, and then put the biscuits back on. It probably wasn't a big deal to put the biscuits on first, but since it was my first time doing this recipe, I just wanted to follow it the way it said. And it was so delicious. After I fixed that mistake, I put it in the oven for about 20 minutes and then let it cool a little bit, and then I served it up. We'll look at it. Today is Friday. It is the last dinner I am showing. And we are making beef bourguignon. I don't know what is necessary to constitute a beef bourguignon, but there's a few things I cut out, so I don't know if I can technically say that it is. I'll link below the recipe that I followed. First, I cooked the bacon in my Dutch oven. Then I took that out with the bacon fat, and then I started searing the beef. I like to save dishes, so I just put the beef in, then I seasoned it while it was in the pot, and then I did that in batches. I only did a few batches because realistically, there's no way I'm going to do that with like 4 pounds of beef. But I did do some, and then I just dumped in the rest at the end. So after I finished searing the beef, I chopped a yellow onion and carrots. This recipe calls for mushrooms and pearl onions. And let me tell you, I would have loved to add pearl onions to this. I love pearl onions, but for some reason they're hard to find in some stores. And then some stores I'll find them in the frozen section, sometimes I'll find them canned, but the store I got my groceries from did not have them. And that's why I'm not sure if it's technically a beef bourguignon, but maybe it is. I don't know. Then I added the onions and carrots to the pot with the tomato paste. And then after that cooked for a little bit, I added in some flour, browned it a little bit, and then added in the wine. I didn't measure it. I just measured with my heart about 2 cups of wine. I love the flavor of red wine, so I really love this dish. I didn't have any bone broth made, so I just added some chicken stock that I had in the pantry. It also calls for the better than bouillon cubes or powder, but I don't think those ingredients are good, so I usually don't use that. I added the bacon back in, then I added bay leaves, thyme, I adjusted the seasonings with salt and pepper, and then I added the meat back in. I put the lid on my Dutch oven and then just put it in the oven for about 2 or 3 hours. My husband last minute took all of the kids out of the house, so it was just me and the baby at home at this point. So I fixed a bowl for myself and then took it upstairs to enjoy while I nursed my baby and get some things done. And that is our last dinner. Don't forget to use my personalized link down below to check out Ana Luisa and get a gift for yourself or someone that you love. Thank you for joining me in this video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. I post videos every Tuesday and Thursday. I'll see you in the next one.